I'm super excited to have with me today a first-time guest, and that is the lovely Kate Houston. Welcome, Kate.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here and to be a part of us rejuvenating and reviving that excitement about love, relationship in 2021.
Thank you so much, Kate. I'm so excited to tap into your wisdom, and I know what you have to share is going to help so many people. So for those of you out there that may not be familiar with Kate and her work, Kate is a dating and love coach, and she has a really unique background. And I want her to start by sharing just a little bit about how she came into this work, how you came to do this work that you're now doing, and then we're going to jump into a really important topic.
Yeah. So like many of us, I had my own ups and downs and roller coaster relationships that caused a lot of pain and suffering. And I had a lot of experiences realizing over time, and as I learned to create my own strategies and methods that helped me free myself from fear, because I had a lot of fear that built up from those experiences that helped me. Well, they were trying to protect me, right? That's truly what the goal is. But then I wasn't getting what I want, which was love and connection and intimacy and trust, because I was blocking it because of those fears. So I got to learn how to walk through my own fear, to step into the other side, which is freedom and joy, to really build intimacy that lasts a lifetime with a partner.
That's so beautifully said. And I always say that fear is one of the 3 F words that can keep us from finding love.
And if anybody out there is like I used to be, a future tripper or worrier about the future, is fearful of all those things, that can often be the thing that stops you, and it stopped me from being in the present and making choices in the present that felt good, because I was so nervous about what would happen later that I wasn't living right now.
You know what, Kate? I think that is so common, and I love this. I love this word that you've given. These words you've given to it, as far as being a future tripper,
yes.
Because I think that's so common for us as women. We kind of want to know what's going to happen next or what the outcome's going to be, and so we're jumping so far ahead in our minds sometimes that we can't be present. So I would love for you to say more about that. I would love for you to share a little bit more about your findings and your journey with fear, and share some things that can really help this audience.
Well, one of the things I like to think of the F word, as you've said here, it can stand for future events already ruined. We're already projecting the future to be a disaster, right? And it can keep us from having beauty. And one of the things that I think is true, and I want to acknowledge this, is that there's a reason why we try to anticipate or understand or navigate, or in my case, manage, maybe even manipulate, which I didn't know I was trying to do that, and not meaning to do it in a mean way, but for well-meaning safety, because I wanted to be safe.
Yeah.
And so I was entering moments of dating with a state of conclusion to try and keep every step was a safety step. Well, there he's being this way. Well, this must mean this. Well, this must, and that was, in one way, I wanted to prove myself right in the things I thought were signs of danger because of past experiences. But in other ways, I was closing myself off to the person who was a totally different human being. And I didn't have the tools to understand how to ask the right questions that allowed me to step into a state of curiosity, which is expansion, which is possibility, which is openness, instead of that state of conclusion, which is constriction and controlling. And when I shifted into that, I was able to show up in a different way, show up with beauty and interest to learn about somebody, and not judge them if they're different, but go, oh, wow, that's so interesting. And instead allow that person to share who they were and discover who they were and see if it aligned with me. Now, one of the things I didn't know, and I'm sure many women have had this, and you probably have women that you've known that had this too, where you had the man list, the list of requirements.
Yes.
And there are certain deal breakers, yes, that are important. But when I had the list, I was missing some really deep, important connections that were most important for how I should identify and connect with a man and know if he's right for me. So I had to get really real with what my love vision was, what were my love values, And then look for how that might show up with a man. So I have an example of this where, and I've worked with clients with this too, where their eyes open differently and they put on a new lens of awareness. It's like the best sunglasses that make you see everything beautifully, like on a vacation, but it's your life. And you start seeing differently because you have a new tool. So I was helping women really look for that. So one of the clients I had, she was looking for, she almost didn't have a date with the guy who was an insurance agent because she's like, oh, what boring. She was making up all these stories about this man.
Right.
And I said, well, just go and be curious and listen to his story. And that's the other thing. Instead of drilling your men with a job interview questions, I'm going to give you some tips here in a second about how you can approach it to sit back and listen to his stories. So the pressure's off you. You're just listening with curiosity, and he will tell you who he is, because men actually will be vulnerable with you if we listen to all that they're saying, and they'll reveal who they are, whether it's a match or not with you.
Right.
So she went on this date with his insurance agent. And what happened was she listened and she heard him say, well, I got married right in college. Then we were having a baby, so I decided to get a stable job, and that was insurance. Then I realized I could work from home and I could be the baseball coach and I could pick him up after school, involved parent. Love that, right?
Right.
And then as, the kids were older and my wife she was a stay-at-home mom for a while or working part-time. Then she wanted to level up her career. I could step in and do more. Supportive partner. Whoa. And she almost wrote this guy off, right? Because of a label she gave him.
Right.
So this is where we want to invite you to listen and get to know what your love values are. And there's a way to do that. And everybody, how that shows up tangibly in our lives is different. And we get to get curious and just hear about it and see where it's showing up for when they're telling us stories. So what I like for women to do is to sit back and relax and ask for stories on dates. When I started doing this, when my clients start doing this, every single time the man comes back at the end saying, wow, time passed so quickly. And it was like a conversation. You know how many times I get grilled on these first meetups?
Oh yeah, so common.
And when you can change how you're showing up and the things you're asking, so he's telling you his life stories. And that's important because they reveal the things you want to know, right? Like, how does he like his family? Does he get along with them? If he doesn't, has he made peace with them? All those things there's ways to ask that, right? Without saying, would you get along with your mom? Well, that's really like, woo, defensive feeling, rather than, tell me about that. And if they've had pain, which people often have, how have you made peace with that? So they've made some resolve about it, right? You want to hear that they've worked through some things, or they're responsible for their feelings, and they're not letting the blame be everywhere else outside of themselves, right? And that they're showing up as the healed warrior, I like to call it, versus the wounded bird. And I attracted a lot of wounded birds.
I think many of us have, yes.
I had it stamped across my forehead, I felt like, for a long time, until I learned to listen to what they were sharing. And when I reflected back on the relationships that were tumultuous and thought about those first conversations, I could see what I wasn't hearing and I didn't know to listen for that would have given me the red flag to say maybe not the best match, to save myself from pain.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to just pick up on a couple of things you said, and then I want you to share with us some ideas on how we can invite men to share some of their stories. Because I think that's so powerful. And I agree with you that men will tell you who they are if we create that opportunity for them to share in that way. And we're really listening, like you said, from a place of curiosity. Yes. But I wanted to go back to just accent, something you said that I think is so important, Kate, and that's this idea of showing up with conclusion or making assumptions about people in advance. And this story you shared about your client with the insurance salesperson is very powerful. It is a powerful example of that. And of course, one of my very favorite books, and I know that you're a book person, we share that in common. I am a voracious reader, but one of my favorite books is The Four Agreements. And of course, one of the four agreements is don't make assumptions. And that is such a powerful principle. So I just wanted to highlight that whether you're in the early stages of dating, whether you're in the middle of dating, or whether you're in a long-term relationship or marriage like I am, it's still so important not to make those assumptions and to still approach our relationships, even, no matter where we're at in that process, even from that place of curiosity, even if you feel like you've known someone for a very long time, or you feel like you're pretty sure about your conclusion, I just think that's one of the most powerful principles that can transform our relationships overall. So I just really wanted to say kapow on that
Yes.
point,
And I
right?
know that there's some level of awareness that many of the viewers here have today, or else they wouldn't be ferociously enjoying and absorbing this kind of information. Where, of course, of course I know when I make assumptions, but we all have different layers.
Mm-hmm.
So we may understand and see some of our assumptions. And then there's other ones that are in our blind spots, that are under our nose, right under our nose. We just don't see it.
Right.
And it's the ingrained things. And I love to give an example of this where it's like an unconscious agreement that we made in our past. It could be from childhood to help us feel safe. It could be from a relationship because we allowed ourselves to believe something somebody said to us that imprinted and hit on that worthiness or that pain story we have. Any of that. It's the idea of really the unconscious agreement is to get comfortable, like start to recognize where that might be. And the example I have that's not related to relationship, that's maybe this will help people think of their own, is when I was 6 years old, my mom would say to me, make sure you eat the crust of the bread. It has more vitamins in it.
Oh.
Well, when you're 6, it looks different. I don't have, abstract thinking yet. It's concrete, looks different. I just believed it. I think I was like 36 before that thought of looking at a sandwich and looking at the crust. Did I say to myself, hey, that's not true? What do you think the unconscious agreement in my back of my head for 30 years was? Now, that's one that doesn't matter. But this is the kind of example where we just don't think of things until we do. And then we get to bring them to light and change them.
Yeah,
right.
So powerful.
And it can be anything. It could be the story of, I need to be the quiet, good little girl, or I don't make a fuss, don't speak up. It could be, the only way to get attention is XYZ, whatever is the thing. So maybe even in listening today, you can start thinking about and feeling about what is something like that. And those unconscious agreements are driving the bus of our lives.
Absolutely.
And the states of conclusion are the result of those unconscious agreements running our lives, because it's our defense mechanism in the sense of protection shield. I don't mean necessarily that it's not pushy. We're trying to protect ourselves. It makes sense why that's the case. But if we really want to show up with our open-heartedness and risk and say, in spite of all the things that have happened to me, I'm choosing to be open-hearted, to meet somebody else open-hearted and start afresh. You're willing to look at those states of conclusion and how it may be keeping you from seeing the beauty in someone in front of you. I like to say too, because the reason why I love books is that I used to be a librarian.
Yes.
Long ago. Are we looking for reasons to keep a man in our consideration? Or are we looking for reasons to reject him and throw him out or to censor him in some way, right? So if we look at it from that kind of perspective of, are we going into the dates to find reasons to like him or find reasons to not? That can really alone be a shift for women.
Oh, such a powerful question there. Yes, really powerful. So thank you so much for sharing this, because I just loving everything you're saying. It's resonating on such a deep level with me. And I would love for you to share, because I know the women are going to be curious that are listening, how we can create that atmosphere for someone, a man or another person, to share more about their lives, basically through story.
Well, first, if anybody was like me, and I was as a librarian, thought all the time, highly intellectual, was disconnected to my heart as a protection, right? Mm-hmm. And I had to allow myself to get into my heart. So the first thing I needed to do before a date, in the car or when I'm first arriving at the door, is get out of my head, which took some time to do, but it's by noticing the senses. Notice the coolness of the handle on the door. Notice the lights around you. Notice the smell in the air. Is there a scent in the restaurant when you first walk in? Any of those types of things bring you to the present, to remember this moment is neutral and is beautifully made available to you. It's perfectly pristine as it is, until we overlay the stories we decide to put on them. We can make it beautiful, even if it's not a match. You can have a great date that reveals not an alignment, but then it's not with judgment or pain. It's, wow, great person. And they get to meet their person. They're not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we enter the date and we're sitting at the date, we just get to simply sit back and ask curious questions and listen. And so this is where I really inspire, especially women who might be fearful or have a lot of anxieties. We often want to talk, like we want to convince somebody that we're really a good catch.
Right.
And the exact opposite, we may seem counterintuitive, is what we need to do, is listen more, be interested rather than interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that begins with simple questions like, tell me how that worked for you, or like, tell me about your family. And, if they say they're the second born or the middle child, like, how did that work out for you? Did you fall into the regular kind of, role play for that? And they'll tell you a story. And if not, you could say, well, what's your favorite family story from growing up, or favorite vacation? And you're going to hear about family dynamics and relationship in that conversation. Men will share with you if they had difficulty with parents, difficulty with brothers and sisters, if they end up getting away with everything as the youngest. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to make judgments on it. You're just going to learn some things. And then you get to say, if they do share something painful of, well, my dad wasn't really available. He was gone a lot traveling for work, whatever. And I really missed him. I mean, that alone is like, wow, how did you handle that? And did you get close to your dad later in life? And they'll tell you. Or if they say, no, I never did, he died before, whatever. Wow, you got to sit in empathy and say, wow, that must be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And just feel with somebody, right?
Right.
And men will walk away feeling heard and connected because you're sharing your presence and feeling as a gift in this moment. And it doesn't mean it has to mean there's more moments like that. You get to decide that at any point in time. No action and decision is irreversible, in dating and relationship, when you discover something that might not be correct for you in that connection with somebody. So that you can take the pressure off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I say getting curious with that and listening, and I say, you could say, who, what, when, where, how.
Open-ended questions.
And avoid why.
Mm-hmm.
Why implies criticism even when we don't mean it. So if we can avoid well, why did you do that? It sounds like it's can be a little sensitive. So if we avoid that and go, you can always rephrase the word, something with why, with, well, how'd that work out for you? Or what was behind that, do you think? Or how do you get along now with your, neighbor, or whatever the story was, it doesn't, they'll open up to you and share those things and you get to laugh at stories. Just allow them to tell fun stories, and humor gets to come out, and you get a sense of that. For me, laughter is hugely important.
Yes.
As a part of relationship. And so if there's a lightness that we can bring, even with a heavier conversation, it's illustrating to me his way of being. And I have to remember too, and I share this with my clients, is that when we're learning all these new tools, it may feel like a journey, and you get to decide if it's an exciting journey or a daunting journey based on that curiosity or conclusion perspective.
Ooh, exciting or daunting. I like that.
Dating is not hard. If we don't make it that way. And if we I know women like to get confused and frustrated by lack of clarity. So there's ways that women can show up and offer that. Like, I've had a number of women say, wow, I've gotten to the end of the first date, and the guy says, well, I'd love to do this again. You say, sure, I'd love that. And then you part ways, and then they're panicking. Well, when is it going to happen? Do I message him? Should he message me? What's going on? What's next?
Right.
Let's spin, right? Well, here's what we can do as women to be empowered and ready to respond without taking lead masculine energy is, before the date, say, if this date goes well and I want to see him again, when are the next couple times I'm available to see him? Have that in your mental pocket so that when he says that, you can say, I would love that too. And you know what? I'm available next Wednesday evening or Saturday afternoon. What do you think? Throwing it back to them. Now, they're required then to either show up and confirm with you if they meant it, or own up if they were just being polite. Either way, you walk away with clarity, which takes away anxieties and fears.
Oh, I love that tip. That's so fantastic.
And women just want clarity and consistency.
Yes.
And there's things we can do to incite that. Like believing, I have what I call fearless and free dating principles and fearless and free love principles. One of the dating principles is this: a date is not a date without a place and a time, right?
Exactly.
Otherwise,
Ding,
it's
ding,
window
ding, ding.
shopping. It's window shopping. It's an idea. Don't hold it. Don't pencil it in. And then if he's not made the plan and you have other plans, you get to say, oh, we didn't have a place and time. So I made other plans because I wasn't sure what we were doing. Then it's teaching him to, in order to honor your time and have it, he needs to set a place and time. You've just taught him how to treat you without it being, mother hen, without being masculine energy, without trying to control. And
Right.
if he doesn't show up again, and we don't have to get upset, we get to be so grateful that he showed us who he was. And it's not right now, even, and not even to judge him permanently. Maybe things are going on in his life, right? Just maybe not right now. Okay.
Right. You get to find out. And that clarity is a gift. Whether it's telling us exactly what we hoped for or something else, it's a gift, because then we're not spending our time, energy, focus, attention, or investing somewhere where we're not getting that back.
We're not 6 months, we're not a year, we're not 3 years into a relationship going, wow, I was banking on potential.
Mm-hmm.
And waiting. No, you got to see who he is and how he shows up consistently, right? That's where we constantly have these conversations of date, enjoy dating. Dating isn't 3 dates and then you're in a relationship. You don't know enough about him, and seeing how he shows up consistently. And if he shows up consistently, not how you like, instead of getting upset, notice that and be okay with him not being the one.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I think that's so important too, because this is an area where the truth really does set you free. And even though sometimes it feels scary to look at the reality of what a situation is, or the reality of who a man is, if we're creating something in our minds that's based on a false sense of reality, we're getting ourselves into what I call one of the second F words, which is fantasy. We're fantasizing and we're moving ourselves into a situation where then we can find ourselves, like you said, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, and going, wow, I was really banking on the potential of this. But the truth is, we were playing a part in our own self-deception by believing in the fantasy rather than the reality of what is. So it's so powerful to remember.
And I think too, when I hear that from women, I say, let's put the mirror up, because why are we settling for potential?
Mm-hmm.
And we do a deep look at the worthiness conversation and where it's coming from and how to release it. And then we actually get to sit down, and I invite the listeners, the viewers here to do this, is to list your badassery. Like the things you have accomplished, not the things that are potential and maybes, but that you are a rock star about. And just know you get to have a partner who's got a rock star list too. And not maybe, sort of, or someday, or kind of on the main things that are really important to you,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he'll be okay with kids. Maybe he's not sure. Well, if you have kids, should not sure be on the table?
Absolutely.
Right? That's like one of those, like, maybe he'll warm up to kids. I had that. I didn't even know that. My tumultuous relationship with somebody who fell in love with me didn't know about kids. He was willing to try, but I don't think he was honest with himself. And then it was a real sticking point and friction in our relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so authenticity is so key, to listen for their truth and give them space to be honest without judgment, because they will tell you if they feel like you're willing to hear their truth, even if it isn't in alignment with something you want or desire.
Mm-hmm.
It's not blame or shaming them for their truth, right?
Yeah, because that's how, if we're approaching more from curiosity, just really observing what is, like you said, looking at what the patterns are, how someone shows up over a period of time. And then we really get to see whether or not this is someone that we could be in partnership with. And that's a gift.
Yeah.
That's a
And I did mention, that when we work on ourselves, when we do the work, when we get mentors to help us with the journey of learning the new strategies, the new methods, the new way of being, the transformation within, the truth is a relationship with a partner is a journey too.
Mm-hmm.
And the work you do on the journey to be prepared to meet your love lays the foundation for you to be successful in being on the journey with your love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about the getting to the result, the marker of living together or marriage or kids. It's the day in and day out. And the, curiosities and misunderstanding of conversation, like you were saying, is with assumptions, is it's amazing that we can say anything and be understood by each other. But I love it when I've had conflict with somebody and we were starting to get frustrated. It's like we stopped and getting to say, wait a minute, what do you mean by this word? And then they said it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean this. I have a totally different definition. And we got to laugh about how we were just different instead of it being right and wrong, right? And that builds an intimacy moment instead of conflict and disconnect.
You're so right. I mean, I've been married now for 14 years to my husband after a very long and winding journey to love and becoming a first-time bride at age 43. I have learned that, that's just the beginning of another journey. There's still a journey to be had, but you're right. The more we understand about ourselves and the more work we've done in terms of our own self-growth and transformation, the more we can show up in these relationships, dating and or moving into a partnership kind of relationship with a level of awareness that creates a whole new possibility for intimacy and connection and love. And that's just an amazing gift and blessing. And for most of us, at least for most of us that are here, this doesn't necessarily just happen like, naturally or gracefully. These are things we've had to learn and skills we've had to develop and insights and awareness we've had to gain through our own experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that we get to really show up. And one of the things I learned for me, and this may land with some of your viewers, in my anxiousness and anxieties and desire to be loved, my craving, it was for a long time, it was about to love and be loved. And the awakening that I had that really opened up my heart. And it goes along with, the tools like the 4 agreements, like you were talking about, where you're strong within you. When you do the journey to strengthen you and feel grounded in you, you get to then be love and beam love.
Mm-hmm.
And then no matter what happens around you, it's not going to knock you over and put you under the bus, right? It's like you literally can withstand the storm.
Absolutely.
Because of your essence there, being present with you and being ready for that journey to share.
Well, and don't you think, Kate, when we become beings of love and when we are beaming love, don't you think that's just such an incredible energy to attract more of that into our lives from?
Absolutely. And we're going to be drawing someone who is in that strength too. And then, everything that we do when we work with clients, when we work with people, if you do this work, it's changing your relationship with all people.
Right.
Because if you've struggled and have anxieties, maybe been a people pleaser with partners, it's probably happened with siblings or parents or other people in your life or work. And and it's just in the romantic relationship where the stakes are so high, we feel such heightened energy and motion around it. And maybe in those other cases, we can temper it a bit, but they're there. So it's a whole world-changing experience when you do this journey to empower you, to free you, and let go of those anxieties, to release those fears, right? And step into freedom on the other side, because it's your freedom that matters, your choices, and knowing you have them.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get to be grounded. So your life is more vibrant and amazing, and you trust the intimacy because you have that safety already within you, right? You've created some of that.
Well, yeah, with that last statement, you've kind of gone full circle here, where when we're in a state of love, when we're a being of love and we're in that state, it does cast out the fear,
Yeah.
right?
You can't, love and fear cannot exist in the same place. It's one will take over. Yeah. So are we making choices out of love or out of fear? That's something I constantly ask. And when you take that into your life daily, when you have that, ooh, am I holding back out of fear? Am I stepping forward because of love?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can change the fear into an exciting, exhilarating moment, breathing through it, walking through the door, opening the door and going, I'm excited, not fearful.
Absolutely. Well, and my experience has been like many. I've had, my journeys through a lot of fears in my life, and the decisions that I've made out of a place of fear do not lead me to the best choices or the happiest places. Whereas the decisions that I make out of love, I'm not going to regret that. Whether it be doing work that I love and that I'm passionate about, like this work that you and I are blessed to do, or whether it be making a decision about a relationship. If I'm making a decision from a place of love, I'm not going to have regrets about that. If I'm making decisions from a place of fear, which I have done, I'm sure we have all made,
of course,
place of fear. Oftentimes those decisions are decisions that in retrospect, I look back and say, that wasn't the right or best decision for me. That didn't lead me in the direction of really where I wanted to go. So this concept of living in love and making our decisions out of love, that alone is a big key to casting out some of the fear, the kind of fear that holds us back from really progressing and moving in the direction that we really want to move in our lives.
And I know so many women may feel like, wow, love is just this big abstract thing. How do I, when I have been disconnected from knowing how that's going to guide me. One of the things that I recommend is where you get really connected to your love vision and your love values, because then you have some anchors, some tangible, concrete anchors to the bigger picture of what is a value that drives your life. So if laughter is one of them, or integrity or honesty, I mean, there's a lot of different ones you can look at. And then you're really listening for those things, right? Instead of the man list or the other things. And then you're going to hear the unique ways that the partner or the date may be sharing that in a way you maybe never thought of before. And you're like, wow, that's an amazing way that they made that show up in their lives. How cool.
What I believe, Kate, and this is one of the reasons why I know you and I produce these kinds of events, is that even one idea or one concept can literally have the power to transform what is possible for you in your connection and in your love life. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about having this fresh new start of a new year. Yes, I understand it's just a day on a calendar, but I think for a lot of us, it gives us kind of that feeling of a fresh new beginning and a new start. And so we want to make that everything that it can be in this year ahead.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. And it is possible for you. Love is out there. There's someone for everyone. And don't give up hope. Step into possibility and own your feminine, beauty and confidence, and be and beam the love that you want to see in partnership and in the world.
Beautiful. That's a lovely way for us to wrap today, Kate. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed connecting with you. It's been a blast. I love this conversation.
Thank you.
Everybody be sure to join us for more. Take care and bye-bye for now.
Thanks.